Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to Bodhi Tree Buddhism with our Class 8, which is our last class in our series on calm and insight study and meditation. So welcome everyone. I hope you're tuning in wherever you are in the world. Where I am here in Taiwan, we're 9 in the morning, and I know some of you are all sorts of different places, so just good to see you wherever you are. If you've already started to tune into the live stream, please just put a little message in the Facebook comment section to let me know that you're out there. Just like to see who's out there so we can have a bit of interaction. I must say, one of the really great things about this series so far is the number of people that have been regulars. It's kind of really encouraging. Good to see people have that interest, and also good to see because then I feel that those of you that have kind of been there for every class, whether it's of course live or whether you're watching after the fact, then you get the whole of the content there. You get the whole of this teaching on calm and insight meditation practice, kind of step by step along the way. So that's kind of really good to see. Okay. This morning, hopefully, we won't have that background rain sound that we had last week. In fact, it's really quite sunny here this morning, which is nice to see. I don't know how long it'll last, but still, hopefully a bit of the quality will be a bit nicer. And today we're just going to go through our usual sort of process. We're going to be looking at the text, of course, talking about that, and then we'll take a bit of a break from sitting, get up, do a few stretches, and then get into our meditation practice proper before we wrap up with a bit of Q&A and a bit of discussion at the end. Now, as I said, today is class 8, and that is going to be, well, this is going to be our last class for this kind of course, shall we say, where we've been focusing on the text on calm and insight. So it's basically, use term calm and insight, shamatha vipassana. It's basically a synonym for meditation, concentration, and insight or wisdom. It's a typical sort of Buddhist mix of samadhi and prajna. But I was thinking, originally, we just kind of continue on with that chapter that we were looking at last week, which is the cultivation proper. But because today is the last week, maybe we can also have a few comments and just kind of do a bit of a refresher and a bit of a reminder about all the things that we've covered, and maybe try to take the content and make it a bit more generally applicable. Though, of course, the chapter material that we're looking at this week is already kind of like that in terms of its general applicability. Okay, so welcome along everyone. I haven't seen any comments coming through here in the comments box yet. I don't know why that is. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay in the software. I'm not going to hit refresh screen. Don't know what that will do. Okay, so without much further ado, let us maybe jump on into the text itself, shall we? Okay, now somewhere around here I should have it. Skip onto this next screen. Okay, so we're continuing looking at chapter 6. Now, I should say, because this is the last week and you might be thinking, oh well, is chapter 6 the last chapter of the text? It isn't. I'm going to just be very clear. We haven't looked at the whole of the text. Maybe it's worth just pointing out a couple of reasons why that's the case. One of the simple reasons is simply that this whole text has 6 chapters, not 6 chapters, 10 chapters, sorry. But the whole text itself, it really tries to cover the entirety of meditational practice. It goes right from the real basic essentials, but it also goes right up to what it talks about as achieving the results of the path, which is basically attaining some kind of awakening or some kind of deep liberating insight. It also talks about some of the difficulties that may occur during the meditation process. And by difficulties, I don't mean I've got a sore back, or my legs went numb, or I found my mind couldn't concentrate. it's talking about what in Buddhist terms talk about like the obstructions of Mara, and some of those states and descriptions are, these, they're pretty intense experiences. Now, whether or not people want to interpret those, for example, as being purely psychological, so seeing these what we might call demonic experiences, is this like just some internal state from within our own minds, or is this some actual external demonic forces that are coming to obstruct our practice? You can maybe kind of set that aside. But the fact is, the text does talk about these kinds of things in detail. And so you might think, well, if these things happen in meditation, why aren't we going to then talk about them here now? The reason being is that we are just a very short and simple kind of once a week we end up meditating for like about 30 minutes, and chances are you're probably not going to have these kinds of really intense experiences in such a short meditation. Typically those kinds of things might be something that would be a factor in a longer retreat. So if we were doing like a 7-day retreat, for example, what we might find is, after a few days and you start to get that really intense concentration going on, then what might happen is that you might have these kinds of experiences like that. Okay, so we're not going to get that here. Okay, now I see a couple of people have tuned in, and I'm also getting some feedback that maybe the video isn't too smooth. So I'm not quite sure what the problem is there. So we see Margot's online, Quinn Jing's online, and Nathaniel. Hi everyone, good to see you all. If any of you have some feedback on the quality of the video, if there's any issues, please do let me know. I'm not quite sure why that is, as usual. According to Facebook, the stream health, some technical live streaming term, is not too bad. It's about 2 megabytes per second. Don't know how that compares, but maybe it's not quite fluid. Okay, unfortunately, like all these things, once it starts doing it, I feel there's very little I can kind of do from my side. Okay, apart from maybe looking into it and trying to set it up better for next time. Okay, so what we're saying, we're talking about like the text itself and why we're not covering certain chapters. And I think this kind of issue is always a bit of an issue for any kind of shorter meditation class. A lot of other places you might have like a weekly meditation class or maybe even a daily class. And I will tend to focus more on some of the basics, just simply because if you're just doing a half-hour session like once a week or even once a day, and the rest of your day is involved with the usual busyness of the day, that short session is only going to have so much depth. Now that's just kind of a fact of life, to be honest, unless you are some like ultra elite meditator, in which case you might be able to, within a very short session, generate some really powerful concentration. But for most of us, it's not going to be the case. It's only going to be if we go into a longer retreat, at least like a weekend or something, and maybe more like a week, or maybe even a longer retreat. So if we were in that context, then I'd maybe talk about some of these other experiences that come up, but maybe not for now. Okay. So where were we? We were looking at chapter 6. Okay, chapter 6. Now, I hope you've got the link. Okay, the file has got a link there in the description of this live stream, so if you haven't got it, you can pull it out yourself, or of course you can just look at it on the screen with me here. Okay, now last week I already said that this chapter's got like 2 parts to it. So the first part is talking about dealing with the issues of calm and insight, particularly during sitting meditation. We talked about a couple of things, in particular dealing with these issues of sinking and floating, so kind of like a dull state of mind, where the mind's very slow and sluggish, or when the mind's a bit too kind of active and turbulent, and how to do some adjustments for that to maintain this kind of middle point where the mind's kind of calm and clear, but it's not dull either. And we also talked about this idea of calming and insight in a manner which accords with whatever is appropriate. So using different techniques to undertake a meditation practice. Now, one thing there, of course, was that, maybe if we can scroll through to that and find it here. So it's a problem when you want to look for it. It's always difficult. Okay, a little bit further on. And this is quite a long chapter, I must say. Okay, here we go. Like counteractive insight. So, contemplation of impurity to overcome desire, contemplation on love and kindness to overcome hatred and anger, and so forth. Now, one of the things, of course, is that we've really just been mainly looking at the breath. And so that's just one technique of many. And as I also mentioned last week, different techniques do generate different results, even if just in very broad terms we say, this is a technique and we use it for concentration and generating some kind of basic samadhi or concentration. Okay, but even then there really is a fair amount of variation, and it's important to make sure that we use a technique that works for us. Now, in a more long-term setting, what would be the better option would be to work with a good teacher. And it's not just that you find a good teacher, it also has to kind of be a bit of a two-way relationship, because the teacher will also need to get to know the student to then try to work out which techniques are best for the student. Okay, so that's kind of an important issue there. Okay, now I'm getting some feedback that the video is this kind of off. I'm going to try something on my side here to maybe see if that does any difference. Let's see, yeah. So when I'm looking at the screen now, it's also, not too good. Okay, so it's under feedback from Marie Law there in Canada. Hi, I was hoping to watch live, but it's very glitchy at my end. I'll have to watch the replay later. I hope it's better when it comes out late after the pre-record. And from Venerable there, good, okay. Like I said, I don't know what the issue here is. It might be the Wi-Fi is just not very strong. Okay. But as I said, to be honest, I don't know what I can do on my side. There's not much I can do to adjust, or I can't stop and do any testing. So I don't really, just thanks for the feedback, guys, but I don't think there's much I can do about it. So I'm just going to continue on, okay? Okay, yeah, so I realized, is the audio still coming through? Okay, so people, okay. So at least the audio is coming through. Okay, that's something. Okay, where were we? We're talking about, the techniques. Okay, so using this technique for the breath, though, is one of the better techniques in general. And as I also mentioned last week, I think also that modern people, we're very busy. We've got a lot of things in our daily lives. We're thinking about things. We have a lot of stimulation of things. A lot of the media that we have to deal with, spending time looking at computer screens. And so, sorry, I've highlighted the wrong one there on the screen. Should be that one there. So breath counting contemplation aimed at counteracting excessive discursive thinking. So discursive thinking is just that thinking mind, that kind of chattering mind. We've got lots of ideas and concepts going on. That often also takes us away from our present experience. And so the breath is a good technique to calm that down. And by calming that down, it also does bring us back a bit more into the present. Okay. So that were a couple of key points from last week, and they're pretty important points there. So if you have the opportunity to go a bit more intense connection with a good teacher, it will be important to try to work out what is an appropriate technique for you. And there's a number of different stories in the Buddhist literature that talk about this. Different practitioners using different techniques that were appropriate to them and getting the results. And also the reverse, the issue of different practitioners using the wrong techniques and getting not the results that they're looking for. Okay, now the second part of the text, or the second part of this chapter, is dealing with just kind of different activities, and it breaks down the activities into 6. It has the classic 4, which are the 4 physical postures. So walking, then standing, sitting, lying down, when speaking, and when involved in some kind of other activity. And for each one of these, as you can see here, so let's have a look. If we look at the first one, so it's 1, we're moving through 6 karmic modes. So karma just actions, modes of action. When walking, then calming when walking, and insight when walking. So it kind of breaks it up into 3 parts. And then the same when standing, calming when standing, and insight when standing. And it follows basically the same model. So we can just have a look at the first one, and we should be able to get a gist of all of them. So let's just have a look here. So first, walking. At times when one is involved in walking, one should bring forth this thought: for what purpose do I now wish to walk? If it is on account of being directed by afflictions or by unwholesome or neutral matters, then one should not proceed with walking. If it is not an instance of being directed by the afflictions, and if it is for the sake of a matter which produces wholesome benefits and which is in accord with the Dharma, then one should go ahead and proceed with walking. Right? So we're going somewhere, we're walking from point A to point B, we're going to reflect on what we're doing, right? Just first of all, I'm walking, right? Be aware that right now I'm walking, and also the underlying intent behind my walking. So maybe you think, oh, I'm going to go to the store, right? So for some reason, you're going to go to the store, you're walking, you're aware I'm walking. But we also need to think, well, what am I going to the store for, right? Am I going to the store to buy a 6-pack of beer at 2 o'clock in the morning? Probably not the best move. So we're going to reflect, is this really a good intention? If it is not, I'm going to the store to buy a 6-pack of beer, or I'm going to, I'm going to go and binge on chocolate. Is this really a wholesome activity, or am I just indulging my senses? Am I just trying to use chocolate or food to stop some kind of boredom or something? Or because I'm not feeling good? Then stop, right? Just stop right now. Turn around, go home. But maybe it's for some other reason, or maybe you have some. It does say here if it's just for neutral matters, you shouldn't do it. But I would add, what if you have to go out to, say in Taiwan here, you can often pay some bills at a convenience store. So you're going to go to the convenience store to pay a bill. It's not a wholesome action. It's kind of a neutral action. But I think probably you should go and pay the bills, right? Something you need to do. And maybe there's some other reason, okay? Maybe you're off to, after work, you've got some volunteer service. You're going to go work in a soup kitchen. You're going to go help some kids do some after-school homework. Kids that maybe don't have adults or guardians at home, and they need somebody to kind of look after them or supervise them, be a big brother or a big sister. Wholesome activity. We're doing it out of compassion. Okay, then we can go forth and do it. So this is the first step. Second step, then, walking, is how does one go about cultivating calming while walking? If one is walking, one maintains the awareness that on account of walking, there may then come to exist all of the dharmas of the afflictions, of good, of bad, and so forth. If one is completely aware that the mind engaged in walking, as well as all the dharmas present in walking, cannot be found, then the false thinking mind ceases. Okay, now this example here, this has been put under the idea of calming while walking, but in many ways this is a method we talked about last week, which is actually to use insight to generate the calming, right? So you're walking, and as you're walking, you're aware of all these dharmas, all these phenomenal aspects that make it up. So you're reflecting on these, and it talks about this very just kind of high-end contemplation, right? All of these things cannot be found. Now that's a kind of a Buddhist or Mahayanic idea of emptiness, effectively, that ultimately none of these phenomena exist. And then because ultimately none of these phenomena exist, then the mind, if there's no object, because those phenomena doesn't exist, then that mind that may have afflictions will also cease. So that ceasing, he's talking here about that ceasing as being a form of calming, but it's coming out about from this insight. Now I'm going to just kind of add a bit here and say maybe we should dial it back a couple of steps and just talk about a more simpler method of dealing with calming while walking. It's just to simply be very aware of the process of walking itself. So as you're walking, you can put your attention into the body, put your awareness into your feet, so feel the soles of your feet contacting the ground with each step. You can feel, of course, not just your feet, your whole legs, right up to your hips and pelvis. You can feel your arms by your side swinging gently as you walk. And so you're just very present here right now in this act of walking. Now, usually when we do this in the meditation hall, if we do some walking meditation, then we can really break it down. Not just even put your attention on the soles of your feet, but you can go right through to each of the parts of the soles. You can put your attention, say, into your big toe of your left foot, second toe, third toe, each of the toes, the ball of the foot, through into the heel, the movement in the ankles, right? You can do the same with your right foot. You can move it right up the body from the soles of your feet, the heels, the ankles, the calves, the knee, the thigh, front, back, up to your glutes, your buttocks in the back, and all those movements. And so all of these, this is what I would call as all these dharmas of walking, right? All the dharmas, all the phenomenal parts of walking. First, just be aware of those rather than letting our mind wander off into something else. And we often do that when we say we're walking. It's just such a simple action, we don't need to concentrate on it. Therefore, as we walk kind of mindlessly, then the mind is wandering. But of course, while the mind is wandering, it's not calm and focused in the present. So we need to do that phase first. As you're walking, just be incredibly present and aware of this process of walking. Then, once we've established that, then we can get into this contemplation. Now, we can also see there where it continues on with the insight when walking. So how does one go about cultivating insight contemplation while walking? One should bring forth this thought. It is on account of the mind that one moves the body. Right? As a result, one brings about that forward movement referred to as walking. Right? It is on account of walking that there may then come to exist all of the dharmas, wholesome, unwholesome, and so on and so forth. Right? So this act of walking is driven by the mind, but furthermore, one should then immediately turn back the attention and contemplate the mind which is engaged in walking. Right? So then this is, at first we're getting the mind to focus on the walking for the calm. Just mind, walking, just be aware of walking. But then we can make a further step of introspection into reflecting back on that mind itself. Right? What is this mind? What is this mind? One fails to perceive any characteristic appearance associated with it. One should then realize that the one who walks, as well as all the dharmas involved in walking, are both ultimately empty and still. Okay, now this is a very, in this text, he just gives us this very short little statement, but effectively this is a kind of a Madhyamaka sort of contemplation. So it deals with issues something like this, so in very simple terms. Let me just pop out of the screen here. In very simple terms. So usually we think about, just walking, and we think about me, I am walking, and this is the action of walking. One goes from point A to point B. Okay. But then when we go in and we ask questions, so what is this walking? Right? What is this walking? And we can break it down into all these elements that constitute the walking. We undergo analysis. So this is a very common process, analyzing each of those parts. And as we break them down smaller and smaller, right? First thing, well, walking, moving of the legs. So let's break down the moving of the legs, right? So the moving of each part of the leg. Break down that movement of each part of the leg. We might just get down to these really basic kind of raw sensations that are going on within the body. And even when we break it down to that point itself, we find that we're no longer having an experience of walking. We're just, first of all, having this really bare elements that make it up. Okay, but then again, we're still usually thinking about it like, here's me, the mind, contemplating these elements. But when we're looking closer, we find and we reflect upon the mind that itself is undergoing this practice. We're going to see that we can't get at some like ultimate characteristic of the mind. We cannot separate out the characteristic of the mind from that experience itself. That's kind of one of the core parts of messages that my live stream is just totally disconnecting. That's a bit of a worry. And I think I can actually see now part of the problem, just my streaming rate is just very low. It's down about 2 megs per second, but then after a while it popped right up to over 5, 6, 7, 8, and suddenly it kind of came back to life. So maybe there's something else using up that bandwidth, I'm not too sure. Okay, hopefully it's back now. But I do see the number of people online is less. Never mind. Now we can also use the same principle when speaking. So, when we're about to say something, reflect, well, what I'm about to say, is that beneficial? Am I going to say this for wholesome reasons, with wholesome intent, or not? As I'm speaking, and then after I have finished speaking, we can also reflect on what we've just been doing. Now the last bit in the text deals with this whole idea in even broader terms, and basically what it's talking about is just when the senses are coming into contact with the world, and really that's just all the time, every time, all day, every day. Okay. Yeah, I see the live stream's cutting out again. And so when our senses are coming into contact with the world, we also need to just be aware of what they're doing and how that contact is taking place. Be aware of what we are directing our senses toward. Are we directing our senses towards certain things with intentions of desire or aversion or ignorance? Or are we directing our senses towards objects with wholesome intent? And then as we're having that contact, like what are the different states that are kind of coming up in the mind? That's also like a big issue as well. Okay, now I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit, I can see that the video is cutting out all the time, and I'm trying to kind of talk about it. Like I said, there's not much I can do, but it does, I just find it's a bit distracting for myself as well. I'm just worrying about the quality of the class that I'm doing here, so I'm really sorry for that. Let's maybe just get into the one of the essential parts of the class. Enough of the talk. Let's just do some stretches and do some sitting. Let's see if maybe the quality picks up at the end a bit for a bit of Q&A and a bit of discussion, and maybe we can also talk about again what we can do for our next series of classes. Okay, so let me cut on over to the other camera. I'll just lower down this camera here out of the way. Okay, let's put the cushion over there. So find yourself some space if you can. And we're going to do a few stretches. Okay, now I'm sure you know the order by now. Go from the ankles, knees and hips. Then we do a bit for the upper body, the spine, open up the chest, and around the neck and shoulders. Okay. So first with the right foot, putting our mental attention into the ankle. So even again, right here, why am I standing? What's my intention? Is it for a wholesome intention? Yeah, I'm getting ready to meditate. Okay, good. Or is it for an unwholesome intention? Well, in our case, wholesome. Okay, ankle back the other way. Why am I rolling my ankle? Right? So I can warm up for meditation. Wholesome intention. Okay, then let us continue it. Okay, change foot onto the left foot. Back the other way. Okay, then onto the knees. Hands on the knees, just sliding down. Opening up the knees, stretching back, opening the backs of the legs. Down. Back. Down. Back. Down. And back. Okay, I'm going to do circles of the knees, warm them up. Back the other way. Okay, standing up. Okay, then up to the hips, so feet a little bit apart. Give yourself some balance and stability. And then around at the waist, opening up the hips, the buttocks, and also the waist. My body's making all sorts of cracking sounds today. Okay, back the other way. I have not been as regular in the last couple of years in my yoga practices as I used to be when we had a full-time yoga teacher who used to give us very excellent classes twice a week. Okay. The yoga teacher is now abroad. So that's the ankles, the knees and the hips. Okay, feeling a bit looser. Then for the upper body, so again coordinating this with the breath. My space is very limited here due to the low ceiling. So hands together, stretching up, inhaling, opening up the chest. And then stretching down, stretching the back and the legs. Up, inhale. And down, exhale. Up, inhale. Down, inhale, exhale, sorry. Up, last one. And then relax. Okay, rolling the shoulders. Okay, let's do the neck. So just first forward and back. So when you go back, just chin pointing up. And then chin down onto the chest. Up. And down. Up. And down. Up. and down. Back to the centre. Left. Now when you do this one, do try to keep your shoulders relaxed. It's easy to kind of bunch them up. And then to the right. Left. And right. Left. And right. Back to the centre. Okay. Now a couple of weeks ago I did mention some other activities, and then I said I was going to teach you, and then I never did. So like kind of a hand massage, and also for the face. So let's just do the one for the hands. Now this is really, so one of the principles here is that it's a bit like reflexology, which we usually think of course, for the soles of the feet. So, but the soles of the feet, the soles of the hand, the idea being that different parts correspond to different parts of the body as a whole. Now I'm no expert in this, but a couple of the principles I have over the years found to be quite effective. So the idea being, in general, that a massage then of the hand as a whole is then effectively like a massage for the whole body. And so also like in stretching it and all these kind of, the stretching will also relieve tensions and all the micro muscles. Also has a similar thing, stretching and releasing tensions throughout the whole of the body as well. Now, you don't need to know like the whole, which part relates to which part, though it is the case that the two hands, they're basically the same, but they are a little bit different. Just likewise, some of the internal organs, left and right, they're not entirely the same. It's kind of interesting, like we evolve like that. Heart's a little bit off to this side, liver's off to this side, etc. So you do need to do both of the hands. And one principle in particular that I always try to keep in mind is most important for meditation is the spine, right? So from the head and down through the spine. And this is basically then represented through the thumb. So you've got a couple of joints of the thumb, right? You've got this top little joint, and then you've got this kind of long one there down. And then the long one that goes from, normally where we think the thumb starts, right down to almost by the wrist. So 1, 2, 3. So it's different from our other fingers because we're kind of 1, 2, 3 there, but for the thumb it only looks like it's the top two that kind of separate. But you do have 3. The top part, that top little one there, then represents the head. And there are a couple of things like right in the middle and right on the point, which are then supposed to correspond to, say, it's like your pituitary gland, and these kinds of glands like deep within the brain and the head. Then this one here, this next little bone from the knuckle down, then it's basically like in the neck. Then the longer one is then kind of the rest of your spine from the neck down through your back. And then down at the wrist, the whole wrist itself is then like around the waist and the pelvis. So that's a really good area to like give a good stretch, particularly on the thumbs. And you may note, for example, like, a lot of these mudras, when you meditate, the hand positions, they'll have like positions of the thumb. So classic pose, of course, is like that, with the thumb tips touching. So then this is supposedly, actively stimulating these energy centers right in the middle of your brain. And other postures where we have things like this, the different fingers correspond to other specific things. I can't remember them all, don't ask. Okay, that's the basic principle. So let's just go through some basic ones to do kind of a whole like hand warm up. I normally just like to kind of crack my knuckles a bit beforehand. That's just my habit. So first of all, fingers like wide open, and then we push them like this, and we massage in between the fingers. Now you can kind of use a bit of force. Now one principle is that, I hope you can hear over the sound, is that if you do this and it really hurts, probably your hands, thus your body, is not in great shape. Okay, and if your body's in good shape, then you kind of do this with a fair amount of force and it won't be too painful. Okay, next one. hand is like a blade, so the blade, and then chopping into the middle of your palm of your other hand. Now you're going to have to move it around and do it in different positions so you get like the whole area. So you go kind of down all the wrist and then the palm, the fleshy bits. Change, other hand. You might find that some parts are like particularly painful. Okay, hand is a fist. Upside. Okay, then kind of the parts here. Now I have to, this is just for me, I have to be a bit careful on this myself. I've got a titanium little plate just inside my wrist, and I know if I hit on that, it hurts. And that's not because being in bad shape, it's because I've got a piece of metal inside of me. So you can hit the base here. So this is kind of then effectively working on your wrist. Sorry, not your wrist, your waist. Then the backs of the hands, kind of make a loose fist, back to back. This is one that most people find really kind of a bit nasty. And you move it around. Don't just hit the same spot. Move it around. And then wrists down, just like floppy. Other way. So wrists up. And then just shakes up. I'm really giving a good shake. We're going to relax now. Okay, now you'll feel a real tingle there in your hands. And that is the basic one. Now, if you want to get into it more specifically, you might find there's some particular parts that are painful. There's a couple of key points, of course. One is that space kind of deep down in the webbing between your thumb and your forefinger. There's like a critical pressure point there. You can put a bit of pressure on that, massage that as well. So this is quite a nice little all body, an easy space-saving all body stretch and warm up. Okay, so let us now take our seat. Now should I change camera here? Okay, I think that's the right camera. Take your seat for the meditation session. Okay, so let's just really simply go through some of the basics. We know how to do our sitting, right? So whether you want to use a half lotus like I'm using here, you want to use a easy posture, one foot in front of the other. If you want to do a full lotus, both feet up. It's all up to you, whichever you find comfortable. Okay, I'm just finding that the half lotus is quite nice. You find which one works for you. Okay, get in position. You might want to just do a few little stretches. Backwards and forwards. Forward and back. Get comfy over the two legs. Shoulders and so on. Okay. So I hope you're sitting comfy now. How much time do we have? Okay, we've got a good amount of time. We take a couple of deep breaths. Just reflect for a moment on what our state of mind is this morning. In particular, remember those two key ones. That, is the mind up here? I had too much coffee, but not enough sleep. I watched 3 movies last night, and my head's just kind of like out there, flying around in space. Okay, so what's the remedy for that? Usually that would be, you need to bring the focus a bit lower, right? So I might want to then just start by putting my focus on the breath low down in the abdomen. Bring it down, calm and settled. And we might find that I'm just like dull, for whatever reason, maybe too much sleep, or maybe like too little sleep and I'm just so tired. Maybe just lately energy's been pretty sluggish and slow, or sometimes if it's like really cold, I just kind of carry up into my blankie. But you can also sometimes get in the heat as well. If it's like really hot, you might just like drowsy and dull, hot, high humidity. In which case, if my energy is low, then I might need to bring it up. I might want to put my focus just around here on the nostrils, top lip nostrils area, where I can feel that contact of the air coming in, going out. Now that's just a starting point. Of course, we may need to reflect on that throughout the session and make adjustments. Don't make them too quick, don't be changing every minute or two. But on one part when you're putting your focus on your practice, leave a little bit of your attention not on the breath itself, but on the mind, right? So that can keep our kind of alertness and make sure that we are on target. Okay, so be comfy there, everyone. Going to start our session. Again, if you've got like watches, if you've got Yinzhu, you've got beads, or you've got glasses, take them all off, set them to the side. So I'm going to leave mine on because I need to look at the time. Otherwise, no idea when we'll finish. Okay. So start with a couple of deep, full breaths. Feel yourself drawing in the fresh, clean, crisp air. Remove any stale air from the lungs. Bring in some new energy, getting rid of the old, stale energy. Mindfully settle our breath. Particular point, maybe the lower abdomen, maybe at the nostrils. Mindful of breathing in. Mindful of breathing out. That's our basic practice. One thing to remember with something like breath meditation, you don't need to worry like, oh, how long can I do this? How many breaths? Just one breath, just the present breath, just right now. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. Reflect on the quality of the breath. Is it that loud, windy, gasping breath? Is it normal breathing, so-called the qi breath? While that normal breathing is better than a rough breath, ideally we want to move it to the xi, which is that very calm, fine breath. Nice and even, smooth, also quite long and deep and subtle, which is then able to induce that calm clarity of the mind. Just be mindful of your physical posture, maintaining that correct and upright posture, especially through the hips and spine and up to the head. Make sure you're also relaxed, not tense. Balance between upright, alert and awake, but also very relaxed and calm. You can make micro adjustments to your posture if you need to, but do try to avoid moving around too much, otherwise it will detract from your focus. mindfulness on your breath. If you're distracted, either externally, perhaps through some sound, some sensation in your body, or you're distracted internally, perhaps through some thought or some other mental image coming to you. Be aware of those and bring your attention back to your breath at your original point of concentration. As we start to calm the mind, we can be aware of what the mind does when it contacts different sensory experiences. So we're hearing sounds, feeling sensations in the body, or perhaps having internally different thoughts occur, memories, or other images or impressions. See if these are generating wholesome states, neutral states, or unwholesome states of mind. Let that entire process be seen very clearly, sort of nice close-up that we normally completely overlook as we are simply caught in the experience. Nice, big, deep, full breath in. Slowly exhale all the way out. Again. Just rock your upper body left and right as you move from a passive state to an active state. Roll the shoulders. Stretch your neck, your left and right. Forward and back. Breath in, coming forward, exhaling. Up, inhale. Exhale over the left leg. Up, inhale. Over the right leg, exhale. Up. Okay, I'm going to just warm up the palms of the hands. Covering over the eyes. Just gently massage around the eyes. And there's a lot of vital points in the face and in the forehead and temples, down the cheeks, sides of the nose, into your ears, top to bottom. So particularly like around the eyes, the front of the eyes, above and the centre, the sides, below and inside, down the side of the nose, the point just below the nose in the centre, it's kind of like corresponds to the top gum, and along the gums, like just push from the outside of course, and the bottom, also in the centre, temples, the ears, so it's good to do a good face massage afterwards as well. So it's a bit similar, so the ones on the face to the ones on the hand. And in particular, if you're feeling quite dull and sleepy, often stimulating those ones around the eyes will kind of brighten you up, freshen you up, so to speak. Back of the head and the neck, shoulders, down the arms, other side. One more time for the warm up. The chest. And the lower back. Okay. Gently unfold your legs. Again, massaging down the sides of the legs, and then down the front as well. Is that so the bone there? Don't know which one. Can never remember which is which. Is on the inside, and the outside is a muscle there. So you can just go down there, and then the other leg. First of all, the fleshy part of your little leg, and then the muscle down the front. You can roll at the ankles. And you also get like bending back the toes. This in particular, if you get cramps in the sole of your foot, sometimes get that. Though usually when people get cramps in their feet during meditation, usually people want to like pull back like this. If you get to a certain level of your meditation where your mind's calm enough, what I now tend to do if I get cramp, I just ignore it and just totally relax it, and that is actually more effective, because the cramping of course is a tension, so then you just relax it, just ignore it. If you try to fight back, can sometimes make it a bit worse. Of course, having cramp in the first place could be from other reasons. Make sure you get enough electrolytes. Okay. Just pull my camera up again. So you get a horrible close-up of me when I do that, don't you? Okay. So, I see, unfortunately, probably due to the quality, numbers viewing has dropped right down. But still, we're at the end of the session here now. Maybe no one around to ask any questions for Q&A time. But just as we wrap up, just to let you all know that as this is our last class for this course, we'll be taking a 2-week break, and we will be back on, what's going to be the date that we're back on? I have to think about that. We'll be back on the 13th. We'll be back on the 13th of June for another course. Now, the question is, of course, what's going to be our next course? And so that's where I'd like to hear back from you all. I'll put up a little poll or something. I hope that you can still do polls on Facebook. I think you used to be able to. I hope you still can. Give you a couple of options for the class content and also for the time as well. So content-wise, we can do things like just a straight meditation. We could do a meditation with a study, with the text, or just straight meditation. We could do something like a more practical kind of Buddhism and daily life, deal with, just basic, from the basis of like Buddhist ethics and the precepts, but try to make them really like applicable, talk about like no taking life. Well, I didn't kill anyone today. Okay, pass. Okay, but then there might be lots of other little things. How do you deal with cockroaches running around your kitchen? How do you deal with mosquitoes that bite you when you go hiking? Things like this. And all sorts of, all manner of other kind of Buddhist ethical questions. And within that, maybe we can also add the Siddhavada Sutta, which talks a lot about interpersonal relationships. How do we relate to like other people? Oh, okay. Sorry, now that I think about it, the date will probably be the 20th. The 20th. Yeah, we skipped 2 weeks. Sorry, I was thinking like 2 weeks in the future. We're going to skip 2 weeks. Actually back on the 20th, not on the 13th. So we can also have Siddhavada Sutta, which deals with like interpersonal relationships and try to bring those things in there. And even if we do maybe that as our main topic, we can maybe do that, we do an hour and a half, do that for an hour, and then we can maybe wrap up the short meditation as well at the end, because I know people do like a bit of meditation in their practice. So those are a couple of different possibilities that we've got. We'll be putting that out there. I'll probably tag a few of you regulars, so we can hopefully get some feedback. And the other one, of course, is like what time to do it. This is presently morning, Saturday morning Taiwan time. Because in the evening over in the US, or early evening or late evening, depending on where in the US. And manages to also be an okay time for most people around East Asia, including Australasia, and maybe even through, don't know how far that will go, but maybe those who are then further west of here, say into the rest of Asia or India or into Europe, Africa, it's probably going to be like late at night or kind of middle of the night in the morning, which might not be the best. So just again to hear from who's interested, in order to find what works optimally for content and also time and place. Okay. Now, I'm really sorry about the quality that we had today. I'm going to have to look into that, do a few little experiments about what was going on. As I said, when we're streaming, I can see some information. It says like what the bit rate is. Like at the moment, it's up at 6.7, which is probably quite nice. And then as soon as I say that, it drops down to 3. And it seems to be when it was kind of 3 or less, it was pretty low. It was really low quality. It was glitchy and not at all fluid, and there were a few times when it was even lower than that as well. So my apologies, I'll kind of have to look into that, and hopefully we can sort out those issues for the next series of classes. Okay, that's about it for now. Thank you all for those who have joined, whether you joined for all the classes or you joined for a class, or even if you just tuned in for a few minutes. It's all good. I don't know, you're all at different places out there in the world, and I think for many of you these classes are taking place maybe under some kind of so-called lockdown or stay at home, save lives, or maybe just under some kind of fairly heavy restrictions in terms of our social contact. So I know it's been pretty stressful times, and that's pretty difficult, and I hope these classes have been of value to you during these times. Unfortunately, the reasons for all that are still going on. They're still going on, and while some countries, some places have done a very successful or fairly successful job of dealing with it, there's still, unfortunately, in the world at large, it's still a very big problem, and it's going to be something that we as human beings on the planet are going to have to be dealing with for many months, if not longer, still. Another reason why classes online are a good thing, and therefore, I hope what we're providing here is providing you with a bit of spiritual sustenance to help you get through this time. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. It's been great to have you join us. A real pleasure that you can come along, and we'll hopefully see you in a couple of weeks.